This video is brought to you by Teal Dash. More about them later in the video. What's in the box? I'll show you. That right there is a brand new 0-mile CDO-A, technically CDO-9 from Nissan. 12,000 mile warranty, 1-year warranty, brand new, ready to go the drift truck. Well, how are you gonna put it in the drift truck, Caleb? Here we have a fish racing adapter kit for the CDO-9 to the 1UZ. This isn't no cheap, buggy, terrible adapter kit. Instead of an adapter plate, they send you an entire bell housing, tilt-in internal slave cylinder. Clutch lines are mounted to the bell housing, ran to the outside where there's a bleeder and the banjo bolt for the line. Now, Fish Racing also sent me a transmission mount. They're 1UZ motor mounts, shift knob, Delrin, which I really love. I love Delrin shift knobs, and carbon fiber hydraulic handbrake. This thing's freaking sweet. Huge shout out to Fish Racing for sending all of this. I cannot wait to have a CDO-9 in the drift truck. But we're not doing anything with any of this in this video. In this video, we are building the front suspension, the front chassis, the strut towers, the subframe mounts, the not trailing arm. Just give me a second here, guys. Gotta go look at the comments. Tension rods. Tension rods is what they're called. Tension rod mounts. Hopefully that will all be done by the end of the video. First things first, you know, since we have our jig in here, our strut towers, what is first? We could either start with the subframe mounts, or we could do some more bending of bars. You know, we just built an entire cage. We've done a lot of tube work, so let's start with the subframe mounts. If you look, it's fairly straightforward. Just kind of need a plate to line up these holes and cover up the notch that we cut out of the frame. So we got the design all made up. Hopefully it's gonna fit. Just gotta cut out a test piece on the plasma cutter. Forgot Walmart was out of distilled water. So maybe we will do the tube work now instead. Admittedly, I should have done this earlier, but for one, I thought it was gonna be harder. And for two, it's always a little intimidating tearing out all the wiring because I'll go back in. So we got like the beginning of our strut tower bars set up. As you can tell, the bar comes off of the A-pillar bar right by the strut tower. And then it's gonna come down to the frame up here and be removable. Well, unboltable, not removable. The problem is that we can't really do the rest of this until this is tacked in and stays in place because it really likes to slip down easily. It's hard to hold it here when the attachment point is all the way down there. But we can't tack this in. As soon as we tack it in, we're not gonna be able to drop the cage. You know what that means? It means we have to get ready to weld up that cage so that we can proceed with the other stuff. Now, before we can just go ahead and start welding it up, drop it, there's a couple things we need to do. Firstly, we have to begin making the bars that will come back to the rear of the frame. It's gonna come off of the main hoop and then have the coupler right outside of the body. So we have to do a hole saw straight to the body, tack that in. And then we have to add our triangulation bars on all the joints. All these holes that we're making in the actual body of the truck are gonna be welded back up, covered, sealed, so it's airtight or watertight. We got both of our coupler things off the main hoop tacked in. We're hoping that we're going to be able to still drop the cage and slide it forward past this, but you know, might be a bit of a challenge. But yeah, it's gonna go, you know, something like this.
Hey, yo.
Perfectly lines up, coming down to the rear suspension, which we're gonna redo all this as well. But fortunately, we are still waiting for the smaller diameter tube to do the triangulation bars. But what we can do for now is go ahead, start welding up the cage. Weld everything that we can reach, and then we'll get those bars, put them in, drop the cage, move on. So this is our finished cage, the finished main part of the cage. No more bars are gonna be added anywhere up here, anywhere back here. We will make a removable door bar, and I think at some point we're going to make anti-intrusion bars, but that's probably gonna be way later down the line. So now, what we have to do is we have to cut the boxes out, drop the cage, fully weld it up, put it back in, put the boxes back in, and then fully weld the boxes to the cab and the cage to the boxes. I didn't really expect to do any of this in this video, but we have to do all of this before we can start building off of this cage the rest of the way. Because once we build more off of this thing, can't drop it. So, time to cut some tacks, and hopefully this thing will nicely come out.
You know it's getting serious when this guy.
You have the unprotected finesser out. been working. I was hoping we were gonna be able to drop it a little bit more. You know, if we could just get this bar down this slope, that's another inch we could drop it. But I think this is probably gonna be enough either way. In case you still didn't understand why we dropped the cage, look at this. All these welds, super easy to reach now, whereas they were literally touching the top of the car before. So let's weld it up. But first, let me take a moment to thank this video sponsor, Deal Dash. Deal Dash is the leading pay-to-participate auction site with over 20 million registered viewers since its inception in 2009. Deal Dash partners with brands, wholesalers, and inventory liquidators to provide you huge savings on brand new products. Now let me tell you how Deal Dash works. For one, you either head over to their website, dealdash.com, or use their iOS or Android app. Now once you're there, you can see a bunch of different active and oncoming auctions. You can also search for nearly any type of product, including electronics, home appliances, fashion, and beauty products, or even cars. F-150 Lariat 5-liter, right now, 5 grand. All auctions start at $0 and have no minimum reserves. Now, every time a bid is placed, the auction price goes up by 1 cent, and the bidding timer resets up to 10 seconds. If no new bids are placed in the next 10 seconds, then the last person who bid on that item wins. Now, in order to actually participate in an auction and bid, you have to load your account with VIDS by purchasing a bid pack. After you have VIDS, each time you place a bid, 1 bid is removed from your balance. All the products on Deal Dash also have buy it now options, so if you wanna skip the auctioning part, you can just buy products there. Now, if you guys are interested in checking out Deal Dash, they're hooking you up with 100 free bids with your first bid pack purchase. That's $10 worth of free bids. Head to dealdash.com/Gingium and use code Gingium to check it out. I wish you luck on any and all auctions you participate in. But for now, let's get back to the drift truck. Man, that was a pain in the ass. Really, just the ones back here along the back wall. This is as far forward as the cage goes. And definitely just had to blindly weld. I did a weld, checked it with my phone. Okay, no cracks, no holes. Definitely injured myself a few times. Now before we go ahead and put the cage back, put the boxes in, weld it all up, we are gonna go ahead and do that air quotes headliner because we actually have room. Now we don't have room for like an actual headliner, like, you know, a nice upholstered headliner, but we do have some room for sound deadening. So we're gonna put this in between the cage and the cab. Probably gonna do the A-pillar, B-pillar, and the roof right now. And we will eventually paint it the same color as the cage. We tested it, steel it adheres to it great, so it'll be all good. As you can tell, this was steel-ed and it's totally flexible, not chipping off, not scratching, and we did this like 2 hours ago. So anyway, let's do this. So we got sound deadening in all the spots that are gonna be tight, you know, places that we won't really be able to do it once the cage is in. I've left the A-pillars alone in the most of this back wall for gussets and other stuff like that. We'll finish the sound deadening later, but I mean, it's much better. Also, if you can tell, we added a bar off camera. So here's the thing. I saw a couple comments raising concerns about passing tech without this bar, which I didn't really care about because this truck isn't going to pass any serious tech anyway, because it's got things like the cage going through the firewall, the suspension, different suspension points, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of, in my opinion, silly rules that prevent, custom stuff from competing in competitions. There's a reason why you don't see trucks or other more unique builds in like Formula D. What I did care about was that the cage is definitely less safe without this bar, especially on the street. And after the eclipse, I'm no longer going to ignore safety issues, so we got the bar in there. I think the cage looks significantly worse with that in there. It's not exactly, I'm not happy with it, but it's gonna be safer, so. Here we are, safety first, or maybe third, but at least it's on the list. Anyway, now we can go ahead, put the boxes underneath the cage, get it back all in the position, weld it in. So I'm gonna get the boxes nice and tight up against the body, tack those in first, then we'll make sure the cage is square. I mean, it pretty much only has one place it can go, but just double check everything. The cage is welded in. Now, we didn't fully weld it yet, just in case some nightmare scenario happens and we have to drop it for some reason. I'd rather not have to totally cut it out. The tacks will hold it in place for now. But with that all done, we can finally start building off the cage for our front stuff. So before we finish up the bars we were making, I'm gonna go ahead, tack in the subframe mounts for the S13 suspension, and then back to the strut tower stuff. So the S13 subframe mounts are tacked in. If the jig wasn't here, we could technically bolt in an S13 subframe. Pretty cool. By far the easiest subframe swap I've ever done, or mounts I've ever built for a subframe swap. So as you can see, we have our main strut tower bars tacked in. The disconnect coupler is right here, and even once the remaining bars are added, we'll be able to unbolt all of these, and the body and the cage, the chassis, everything will come apart from the frame. I would have liked to get more progress done on the front chassis here, but all the stuff we did with the cage took up way more time than I was expecting. But hey, we've got a fully finished cage with a diagonal bar, sound editing, fully welded up, packed back in, and we got the hard part done up here, and we did get the subframe mounts done too. So that's a lot of progress. In the next video, we are gonna go ahead and finish this, hopefully do the torsion bar mounts as well, and then maybe even start playing with the rear. If you guys do want to support the channel, please check out Patreon or the merch. We've got a bunch of new stuff coming to Patreon soon, and a new drop of merch coming soon as well. Super excited for both those things. Thank you all for the support. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.